My name is Anant Sudarshan and I'm from New Delhi in India. I am a PhD student at Stanford. I'm in a department called Management Science and Engineering, and I'm essentially an environmental economist. What that means is I look at environmental problems, in my case, how people use energy and how we can get them to reduce the amount of energy they use. And I use economic methods and models to answer those questions. Specifically, I work with empirical data and I use a technique called econometrics to try and tease out the different things that modulate people's energy consumption. And it becomes very clear that, that most of the things that determine how much energy we use and whether or not we are using too much or too little have very little to do with the technologies that are being used and a lot more to do with behavioral things, how much people consume, why they consume it, things that are independent of how advanced your technology is. And for that reason, it became evident that if you're going to be interested in decreasing your energy consumption or being more environmentally conscious, then you need to understand how to change people's behavior and how to model people's responses to different incentives. So the title of my dissertation at this point is The Structural Determinants of Residential Electricity Consumption. It's essentially trying to break down the different forces that determine whether a household uses a lot of electricity or uses very little, and why there is so much heterogeneity in consumption both within a country and across countries. All over the world, people are trying to figure out how we drive consumption down, and so places that seem to have achieved this goal become very interesting, not just within the country where this happens, but in other countries as well. And so California is very interesting in that regard, because California shows both very low electricity consumption per capita and also has a history of implementing a whole range of policies and programs. The problem is that in order to decide how effective these have been, you have to understand everything that determines energy use and not just look at the aggregate picture. And so that's when I kind of got interested in understanding the California story a little better as a means of figuring out what are the different things that drive energy consumption. Because once you know that, you can make an informed judgment on how much you could expect to reduce consumption in other places, what kinds of targets are reasonable, what are not reasonable, and what are the different incentives that you can use and apply to change the way we use energy.